And got it. Perfect. We are ready to start. So again, thank you all for having me today. I must admit, one of the first forays into my community development role was with our seniors community. And that's probably where I first met Lucy all those years ago when I started. And I have a very soft spot for this group because I consider often our seniors the leaders in thought, our leaders certainly in terms of history and knowledge, and have a tremendous sense of direction. And you know what's interesting and how that ties back into the work that I'm doing is that the Brantford Immigration Partnership is not a new thing. It's something that's been revitalized since 2020 when the city of Brantford decided to get the grant, submit for a grant to Immigration, Refugee, Citizenship Canada, because over time, the city has again seen a pretty significant growth in newcomers to the city. I think we can all see that. I think we can understand, without getting too deep into how this has kind of blossomed as to why, but the pandemic really did create a space where a lot of our newcomers made a decision to move to smaller communities, to be in communities of space. And, you know, places like where I'm in Hamilton, we see a lot of people leave. And over the years, people have been leaving to come to a beautiful community like Brantford. And one of that group in particular that we're seeing is the newcomers. So those people that are coming in from different countries that are experiencing Canada perhaps for their first time and finding a place to settle. And I'm not going to try to do death by PowerPoint with my slide presentation today. So I'm just going to slide and give you sort of this high level perspective on what it is. And then after I go through the slideshow, perhaps we can have a little bit of conversation and discussion. One of the things I'm hoping you can keep in mind as I'm going through the slides is our seniors community has such tremendous knowledge, such tremendous experience. It understands the history of the community. It knows what it's going to need because often you're at the lead of some of the things that are needed. So I'd like you to think on two things. One is how you feel that newcomers might be able to connect into, maybe in particular into our seniors community, but ways that, number two, you as the leaders in that community feel that you would be able to connect and to participate and assist and maybe serve with that newcomer population. And we can talk about that, but just maybe letting those questions mull around in your head a bit. So again, I just give you a little bit of a quick background. So myself with the Immigration Partnership, in 2020, after an absence of an immigration partnership being in Brantford, myself as a municipal employee and one of my teammates at the time, Gagan Batra, along with the talents of others here, i.e. Lucy at the time, and others that basically said it's a good time to submit a grant. And in 2020, the federal government did give us the grant to have the immigration partnership in Brantford. We've since coined it the BIP. So you'll often hear me just use the word BIP. It's Brantford Immigration Partnership on short. And I'm one of two coordinators. My partner, Dimple Ball, who is not here today. She's off on another assignment. Her and I are specifically assigned this as one of our priority portfolios. So when we get right down to it, it's really simple. I changed this slide this morning because it was far too governmentalese when I looked at it. And at the end of the day, really what it is, there's three core functions. We're there as a group to educate our community on who the newcomers are. What are their stories? Who are they? To advocate on their behalf, to be there to say and recognize that these people coming into our community have tremendous skills, they have gifts, they have talents and things that are of great value for the community to take advantage of it. And it's a way, most importantly, for those newcomers to feel a sense of belonging. One of the great things I get, and I want to see more of, is newcomers that are coming here saying, this is my home. I look at Brantford as my home. And these are the things that we really push to assist and support with them. And the only way we can do that is if we advocate on their behalf and create an open space to do that. And then actively promote them, promote opportunities where they're able to participate and how we can work together. And that's really, again, for newcomers and their families in Brantford. We're seeing a pretty large migration. And maybe this is some of the questions you may ask later on. We're starting to see a really strong migration coming in to Brantford as primary. Back in the day, I would say maybe when I started the city, 2010, newcomers might have been coming in. Hi, I'm coming in from a particular country. I landed in Toronto, I went to Brampton, and now I'm coming to Brantford. So once they've got their feet on the ground, they started to reposition themselves and then eventually maybe came to Brantford for any number of reasons. Over the last 6 years, we've noticed that it's a little more secondary, where it was, hi, I landed in Montreal or Toronto, but I think I'm going to look for a town like Brantford. What's begun to change, and I think the pandemic spurred some of this on, most definitely the cost and the price of affordable housing in larger cities has caused this, but people are coming to Brantford and saying, this is my primary destination. And a lot of that also has to do with family reunification. So our newcomers that are coming to Brantford, enjoying staying here now, bringing more family on. So this is what we're kind of seeing as a trend. So what I'm saying in a nutshell, we will be seeing more and more and more newcomers to our community. And the idea of the immigration partnership, led by Dimple and myself and a number of partners, which we'll talk about, is to really do these things, is to promote the education, the advocate, and the marketing and promotion of our newcomers. Now, this is where I'm going to go a bit legalese on y'all here. The way we're able to do this is that I look at Grand River Council of Aging, for example, as a primary partner, somebody that needs to be at that table. They're part of what we call the Partnership Council. So people like Lucy or a representative would be able to come into the table. We've got, of course, people coming in from settlement, from economic development, faith and culture community are there, healthcare, employment. Anybody that's a key member of those sectors is sitting at that council. So we made a reach out in 2020, and over time we've continued to adapt that group to be the key group that maybe does some of the direction and really act as leaders of their own sectors, and encouraged to work with others to sort of see what we can do to make life in Brantford for our newcomers what it should be. I think I'm in a group where some of you might remember the old Mars Bar commercial, at work, rest, and play. That's kind of the goal that we have here, is we want to work, rest, and play for people to find that Brantford is the place that they want to be. So this is what the function of that council is to do, is to bring all of those sectors together and say, how do we make those things better? There's a thing called the BIP network, and the network is, in one word, everyone else in the community that feels that they have a vested interest, a desire, a longing to assist and support to help promote education, advocacy, and promotion for our newcomers. We see everybody from small-based businesses to other, most importantly, some of our new Canadians saying, you know what, I've been in Brantford, I love it here. I want to be somebody who can be a champion and a leader in the community to help bring in other new Canadians. So, and of course, all of you, you're all here. This is part of what we do collectively. So the network is something that we do. You're encouraged to join. I'll get to that maybe at the very back end of this with the websites, but in a sense, you've got that large formal group, and then the network is everyone else. And we make sure that those two are very well connected with a lot of our marketing. The other thing that we have too is, over time, we've sat down, we've done consultations with the community, we've sat down and had some really strong discussions, done some needs assessment, all that not so fun stuff, to sort of sit down and say, what is it that our community really needs? And it kind of got to a point where we were able to, within 5 separate distinct groups, sort of say, this is the things that the community thinks is priority. So one of them is community connections and champions. That's a separate action table of partners and community members that say, we're here to put together the people that are champions in our community to see how they can assist and support in making that initial connection and some of those vital connections a little bit easier for people to not feel as daunted by the process. So that's a key group that we have. We also have a group that's called Anti-Discrimination and Inclusion. I don't need to be telling any of you, this is a major shift in the way a lot of our work is being done. And currently we have this thing that the city that we call, that's also part of the BIP mandate, called the Inclusive Communities Plan, which was just approved on the 6th of this month at council, where we're really having this group together and saying, are we meeting the needs of our community around belonging? Some places here we have conversations that are difficult. Sometimes they can be aspirational. Sometimes they're just a space for us to be able to promote and market means to assist and support to create that belonging. The not so fun part of this is number 3, as most people are not so research and needs assessment heavy, but really for us to have an idea of what's important in the community. Dimple and I, along with our partners, sit down and do some of those needs assessment. We do the research to make sure that we're on track with what the community wants us to be doing. And another piece, of course, with the economic development, employment, and training table, that's where all of our economic partners will sit. Chamber of Commerce is present. Some of our Employment Ontario partners are present, and community members that think that employment, economic development, and training is a place where they want to focus. All of these tables are geared towards doing projects, and projects that are brought up by public, by members like yourself, or members at the table that think are viable. For us to be tackling so that we start to see more and more uptake and more belonging with the community as a whole. And last is the BIP youth. I partner with one of my partners inside the city. Her name is Bethany Leto. Some of you might know her from Healthy Kids Brantford. She does tremendous work. She's actually been given accolades to being one of the best in the province, if not the best, if you ask me, at being able to promote actively with our youth programming. And what, from our perspective with the BIP, is how we bring in some of our newcomer kids. We all know that one of the hardest places for somebody to be is probably on either end. As a youth and as a senior entering a community, there's heavy peer interaction, and we try to create some more of that peer interaction. So all of these action plans, again, I'm going to try to go past some of this. There is a document which I will be able to link. Again, Linda, I'll attach this document. It's really organized around these pillars of connection, people feeling included, employment, and partnerships. This is what we want to be able to do, is to focus on that kind of projecting. So we'll talk about this maybe as we flesh things out a little bit more. So the way I look at it is how staff, and really it should read how partners can assist or have partnered, is in projects. So maybe as I'm sitting here talking, if your mind goes adrift, that's totally understandable after 5 or 6 or 7 minutes, but maybe it can drift to a really cool place. Like, wonder what we could do with these people. Wonder what we could do with this BIP staff and this partnership. And some of the things that we've had that are ongoing projects, just gives you some sample stuff that we've done. So we've done Your Language, Your City. I don't know if you know in the city what the top number of the top languages are that are spoken outside of English are actually Arab, Aramaic, Tagalog, which is commonly what's spoken by some of our Filipino community, Spanish, up and coming, and actually the one that's #1 with a bullet, it seems, is rapidly growing Spanish community. And we also have a larger growing French community, and that's because we have a lot more of our Northern African community moving in. So those are your primary languages. What we're trying to do is to expose people to some of the different languages and some of the traditions and customs. So we have an ongoing project with Your Language in Your City. And I might add that we very successfully, with one of my teammates, Amy Brandt, been running some of the Indigenous language courses, specifically around Cayuga and Mohawk. What I found fascinating when we ran this program, just as an aside, the number of non-Indigenous that were just lining up. It was a great problem to have, lining up to speak either or the Mohawk or Cayuga language, which was super encouraging. And it was also wonderful to see some of our Indigenous community also coming in and learning. So that Your Language, Your City is reflective of what we're able to do there. Newcomer Employment Toolkit, we have it posted online. It's a series of resources that are very, very well curated, that assists and supports our newcomers to find their way around. The Young Minds Book Club is interesting. As you're often hearing about people saying, oh, we're starting to read all these different stories about different communities and looking at how different cultures process and tell story. So the Young Minds Book Club, we actually were able to, with some of our grant money, purchase and support books that spoke to some of those cultures. And we've been partnering with the Brantford Public Library to be able to do that. And what we're going to be expanding into, and I'll talk about this, is some programming that we're doing with our child and early on projects to have some of our community champions to be telling those stories about their community from books that are reflective of stories that they can share that they learned as children. And again, it'll be done in English. So there's this idea of really fostering a sense of not only community and culture, but a wonderful sense of children to learn at a very early age. So that's the sampling of some of our projects. There's a lot of eligibility there. It's around publicity and marketing. We're able to print and photocopy as a group. Sometimes we're able to pay for activities and professional fees. We often deliver programs. The big one that we're really focusing on right now is translation and interpretation. We have some funds. Again, our funds are limited, but we do have some. And then training and professional development. One of the wonderful things we do as a partnership is really rely heavily on people like you to be able to provide some of those skills and training development opportunities for our newcomers. So this is kind of how you can help and how we're trying to develop programming. One of the big questions that comes up is the hot button issue around the Ukrainian relief. Really early on, I would say probably about into the first 5 or 6 weeks of the war and the outbreak of the war in the Ukraine between Ukraine and Russia, we were already seeing a lot of changes in the way that IRCC, or Immigration and Refugee Citizenship Canada, was able to connect. So the mayor charged me and one other to sit down and say, okay, how can we engage our community partners? Who are they? Who needs to be at the table to listen? So along with our municipal leadership, our MP and MPP, who also have a voice at the table, as long as some key partners like the YMCA and Wesley, who are key, let's say, in settlement, our employment people like the St. Len's and Wesley as well, Grand River Community Health with primary care, and a number of others, really got together and say, how do we assist and support this newly growing population? And yes, Brantford has not seen, let's say, the large numbers that we've seen in Montreal, Quebec City, that have been seen in Winnipeg, and now are being seen in the sanctuary cities of Hamilton and Toronto. But people are discovering Brantford. As a matter of fact, I'm dealing with 60 people that are coming into Brantford on a bus tour saying, this looks like a place we might want to stay. Can you help us arrange something? That's the kind of thing we're trying to do. Anything that assists in people with housing, getting their kids into school, all the partners are coordinating and working together. So this is something that we stay on top of, and we provide pretty regular updates to the community on this as well. The last piece here is the inclusive community plan. So again, we were discussing how the community now is part of this thing called UNESCO, the United Nations Coalition for Inclusive Municipalities. In a nutshell, by removing all the government talk, really what this is, it's a network of municipalities that wants to make sure that we are taking a look at discrimination, anti-hate, anti-Islamophobia, but also diversity and inclusion by talking about it from that equity, diversity, and inclusion lens. How do we make sure that we mitigate the negative and that we accentuate the positive by creating inclusion? As a matter of fact, I think we're at a point where all of the extra words are going to be all brought to one word, and it's belonging. Whatever that means, that people just want a place to belong. So Brantford, of course, has worked very hard on that. And as of recent, June 6th, which was last Tuesday, I believe, we did go to get a unanimous vote on the first step of that inclusion plan. And I can also include that in Linda when I do send a follow-up email for those that are really interested to use that. It's all publicly posted online if you wish to find it, but I'll make your life easier by giving you those direct contacts so you can log into that really quickly. And of course, everything in the world now is on somebody's website, and we too have one. At our city website, we've got a thing called a microsite, or a separate site called brantford.ca, and the front slash there with BIP. And it really talks about some of our features of who we are. And if I take a moment here, I think I'm going to just log on so you can take a look at it very quickly. I hope you can see this. Let me know that you can. Somebody can give me a thumbs up. Does that look okay? You see that all right? Perfect. Thank you. And you can kind of get an idea that this is what we're doing. This is our page that introduces who we are, what we're all about, links to the action plan, and all these different little subgroups that we're talking about, updates and news. For those of you that might be interested, you can join the network. There's a little link there. Well, all you do is send your name and your email address, and you'll be hearing from me. So it's just a matter, maybe for it's just to be included in activities or to get information as it becomes available. Some people access the Newcomer Needs Survey, which we've been very fortunate to have a lot of people signing into events and activities, newcomer stories, of course, the Ukrainian relief. And you'll notice a series of really wonderful connections to our YouTube page, where you can now watch some superb stories of newcomers to Brantford. They'll tell you what they think of Brantford and what life was like coming in. And I will tell you, they're all inspiring. They're all thought-provoking and all really great stories of resilience, with one common theme, which, by the way, they were never coached, just to be clear, all came up saying the same thing, and none of them heard the other speak. I really love Brantford. This is now my home. When people ask me where I'm from, I say Brantford. That one really, really caught me. So I would say that's a testament to those like yourselves that are making this a really great destination. So that's really, really encouraging. And then, of course, you can always join the BIP by connecting to our action tables and our network. And at the end of the day, this is how you can reach me. Of course, when I get the email out, there's me and my name in its full glory of Vujasinovic. For those of you that everybody goes and says, oh, what is that? So my family came to Canada in 1951, so we're almost here 3/4 of a century. I'm the firstborn. We're now on our third generation of Canadian-born kids. The last name is Vujasinovic. We all came from what was once the former Yugoslavia and settled in Hamilton, where my family has been and dispersed. And I've been, since 2010, been blessed, of course, as you've heard me say earlier, to work for the city of Brantford, which has been a really great honor of mine and still continues to be. And if you want to reach out to connect, this is how you do it. You can email me directly. I'm always happy. Lucy will tell you, I'm sure. I'm pretty quick to answer and more than happy to speak to you. And Dimple, who's my new partner, is wonderful as well. So I'm going to stop sharing here, and I've talked far longer than I wanted to, but for those that know me, that's not surprising. And is there any questions you might have, or is there anything that tweaked your curiosity? I'd love to hear.